Network Television proudly presents the 1986 Goodwill Games from Moscow and from Madrid. Brought to you.
Welcome to our late night coverage of Day 15, Goodwill Games 1986. Another interesting day of action. The incredible upset by the Soviet Union team over the United States in volleyball. The U.S. had gotten out to a 2-0 lead. The Soviets came back to win 3 games in a row and upset the United States to take the gold medal in the Goodwill Games men's volleyball competition. Remember, we still have another U.S.-USSR confrontation coming your way in prime time tomorrow night when the U.S. men will play basketball versus the Soviet Union from Madrid in Spain. So we'll be bringing that to you tomorrow night in prime time. Before I tell you what's on the program tonight, let's get up to date on the medal count. We've kept up with it every other day or so to give you an idea, and I always remind you that only the Soviet Union and the United States have appeared in all the competition against each other. So the only real medal count in terms of competition that counts is between the Soviet Union and the United States. The other countries count their medals on the events that they entered. The Soviet Union, a commanding lead of 225 total medals to 129 on the right side of your screen, and in the gold medal count, 105 for the Soviet Union, 40 for the United States. 32 countries have earned medals in the competition in 15 days of the Goodwill Games. More than 70 were here to compete. Peggy Fleming is with us on our late night report. We'll also be taking a look at judo, and we'll also cover one round of boxing, or actually an entire match with Arthur Johnson, the U.S. flyweight who's in action. Stay with us. We'll be right back. There are hundreds of us who have been working very hard to bring you coverage of the Goodwill Games for the past 16 days. Many have been working for about a year now to bring you this. One of the hale and hearty workers went down a little bit earlier this week. We're happy to say that he's going to be all right now. But Marty Beeson, audio technician for TBS Sports, was hit with a case of appendicitis, and thanks to cooperative efforts, everything's a cooperative effort here in Moscow, cooperative efforts between the American doctors who are working here and the Soviet doctors. Marty was taken to a hospital, had surgery to remove the appendix, and is now, we're happy to say, recovering nicely. So he was our only injury so far, and Marty's doing all right, and we wish him the best and hope he'll get back on his feet very quickly. And he is doing well at last report at the hospital. I want to also mention that a little bit later in the program, the Executive Vice President of TBS, Bob Wussler, will be here. He's also General Manager of the Goodwill Games coverage, and we'll talk to him about the coverage, about how it's gone, whether he's happy, disappointed, maybe a story or two about how all this got started. We'll reflect with Bob Wussler a little bit later in the program. But right now, I'm happy to say Peggy Fleming's with us. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I talked to you the first time when you just got into Moscow prior to the figure skating.
That's right.
Enjoyed your work with Kurt and Peter Carruthers.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about the exhibition versus the competition of the figure skating. This was exhibition. World champions, yes, but no competition. Is it better for a viewer, not better, and how does an athlete feel about it?
Well, I think the athletes had a wonderful time, and I think everyone that watched the figure skating could see that. Mm-hmm. We had the best in the world here. We had all of the world champions. 2 of them were Soviets, and the other 2 were Americans. And I think they all skated well. They all did some very difficult moves to show the audience what figure skating is really all about. But they also, number one, had a lot of fun and really entertained the audience.
Looking back from '68, when you won the gold medal in Grenoble, to the figure skater today, the singles female figure skater, what are the differences?
Well, I think it's always gone in waves of the talent that's available, and the styles are always changing, and the techniques of teaching skating and the equipment is getting better. And I think people are pushing the rules a little bit farther than they used to, like Torvill and Dean. I think they're going to be legends for a long, long time in the sport of figure skating. And I think it's you know, I'm looking forward to skating, you know, changing even more and getting more artistic, because we are a sport and we are an art form, and I think that combination has got to always keep changing, and talent will always keep getting better and better.
We noticed a tremendous gap widening between the Soviet gymnasts and American gymnasts, and East Germans and Bulgarians and Romanians, Chinese too, for that matter, with the Soviet Union. Although when we look at the World Championships of figure skating, it's pretty even Steven. I mean, there's Debbie Thomas and Brian Boitano and et cetera. Why is figure skating in the United States keeping pace and some of the other sports not keeping pace competitively? Do you have any feeling about that at all?
Well, I think, you know, the athletes want to compete against the best in the world. That's the only way you can measure how good you really are. And I think when you have more opportunities to see them, like even in exhibition, I think our skaters were evaluating, you know, just how in training are these people at this point, because we've got another 6 months or so before we compete against them in the World Championship. And I think, you know, they need to, you know, be pushed every so often to make sure that, you know, the work that they are doing at home, all isolated alone, is the right thing to do, and it pushes them on to try harder, and that's what makes the sports grow.
Speaking of that, the medal count we just reported on a moment ago, the Soviet Union dominating the medal winning in this game. What does that mean to American athletes, as being a previous amateur athlete yourself? Is that going to be a bummer? Or is it going to challenge the athlete? What does it tell them first as they look toward the '88 Olympics?
Well, I think it should challenge them to try even harder. I mean, all you can really do is the best that's your potential there. And, you know, if they keep striving for that, it'll eventually, you know, get up there. But, you know, the best kind of competition is competing against the best in the world, and that's all an athlete really worries about, not the political thing or really the count of medals, but just competing against the best in the world and doing the best that they can.
Well, you're going to be joining me and Kurt Gowdy for the coverage of the closing ceremonies.
Right.
The closing ceremony, I think it's just a singular ceremony, which will take place tomorrow. It seems only a minute ago that we began these games.
I know.
As an athlete, what do the closing ceremony, what does that mean to you? Is it a moving moment?
Very much so, because you've had a lot of time with the athletes, and at an event like this, going and seeing other events and talking to athletes that go through the same sort of thing that you do, it puts a perspective on, you know, you being an athlete, which I think sometimes you get so isolated in your own little world of your sport that you don't look at the big picture enough. And I think this is a wonderful family to be considered, you know, the best in the world, and be an athlete is a unique thing to do.
Okay, I'd like you to stick around a little while on our late night show and ask you about some of your personal observations and some of the things you've been doing around Moscow the past week besides covering figure skating. So be ready for a full disclosure here. We'll be back in just a moment to cover judo as we continue our late night coverage of the Goodwill Games. Please stay with us.
Classification here at the judo competition, and to date it's been a rough go for the Americans. In fact, they haven't won a match since Steve Cohen's silver medal winning performance on opening night. Chuck Madani, your observations. Quite simply, the Americans are getting smoked. What's going on?
They certainly have, Kevin. There's problems with differences in training and intensity. There's difficulties with being in the Soviets' backyard. There's a problem with jet lag. All of these things work against the Americans here at the Goodwill Games.
Well, now, earlier, Chuck had the opportunity to talk to the assistant coach of the American team, Tom Masterson, and here were his views on the Americans' difficulties.
I think it's a matter of training. We've been training in Japan primarily, and the European-style judo is much more physical, and I think we need more exposure to European judo to do better in these types of competitions.
We're looking forward to the 143-pound class now. How does the American Joe Marchal look in this one?
I think Joe has a good chance. Joe won a silver medal at the World Collegiate Games last year and has been training in Japan for most of this year, and I think that he's ready for the competition.
1 minute and 49 seconds to go in this first round bout in the 143-pound class. Motohiro Koga of Japan against Joe Marchal of the USA. Joe Marchal, 25 years old, three-time national medalist. He was a member of the 1985 World Championship team, and he's been training at the Olympic Training Center for the past 2 years.
Penalties have been the only score in this match. Unfortunately, Marchal has one more penalty than Koga does, which translates into a major advantage for Koga. Still not much throwing action, not much attempt at throwing. There's an attempt at a shoulder throw. Marchal backed up into the corner. Marchal moves left and right, left and right.
1 minute to go. Joe Marchal, the USA, trailing Motohiro Koga of Japan.
You might wonder if legs are more important than arms in judo. They're both important. You have to have your grip, and then your legs and hips do most of the throwing.
Neither one of these judo players seems to be able to get the handle on the other guy. Get in a good position for a throw, Chuck.
Well, that's the key. That's why grip fighting is so important. There's an attempted side sacrifice throw. Hasn't turned out very well for Marchal. Marchal's being pinned right now. Pin's broken. After only a few seconds. There won't be any score on that. But Koga knows that there's only a few seconds left. 12 seconds left, and the referee tells them to stand up. It was a stalemate position. Marchal had wrapped Koga's leg with his legs.
10 seconds.
Marchal has to score fast.
So the match ends, and the winner will be Motohiro Koga of Japan. The tough luck continues for the USA as Joe Marchal gets beaten in the first round bout by Motohiro Koga.
Here's a replay of that side sacrifice. Koga saw it coming and then whipped right into a pinning combination.
One consolation for Marchal. He gets beaten by one of the better judo players in this weight class. And for a closer look at Motohiro Koga, here's our Goodwill profile.
My day begins at 6:30. I train for 1.5 hours, then attend classes till 4. After that, I practice for 3 hours. The rest of the time is free, which means eating or taking a bath. Western judoka are articulate and are good at groundwork. So I have to be able to take on a defensive posture and build up my stamina. Movement plays a big part in my judo style, so I hope to be able to use this as an advantage. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose a bout. Usually the first thing I do is to have a bath. A bath gets rid of all the fatigue of the day, and you can talk with your buddies and just relax in general. I've been interested in judo since I was small. Judo has become my life. So even when I venture out in the commercial world, I want to take judo with me. I want to become a judo instructor. And when the time comes that I leave active competition, I'd like to train judoka who would compete overseas. I don't think that judo is an extremely interesting sport. Even if you lose a bout, you lose simply because you haven't trained hard enough. You have really lost yourself. So you really have to train so as to be able to beat yourself. My goal in Moscow is a gold medal, but what I really want more is to have a bout that I personally feel happy with.
And now, Motohiro Koga of Japan is in a semifinal bout. The gold medal round is on the line. His opponent from the Soviet Union, Ali Khamkhoyev. Koga has gotten this far with wins over Joseph of the United States, Serban of Romania, while Ali Khamkhoyev has beaten Sosor of Mongolia and Cardosa of Brazil.
In the last minute or so, Koga has really looked like he's dominated Khamkhoyev. He's knocked him down a couple of times with 2 or 3 different types of throws.
However, we do know that in that last minute or 30 seconds, the Soviets really come on strong.
They really know how to play that clock, that last 30 seconds or minute. If they're ahead, then they're going to move around, try to grip fight, not do much. And if they're behind, well, they just turn it on all the way. Koga getting on top of Khamkhoyev, turning him over, out of bounds. If a judo player's body goes halfway outside, that means that they're out. They have to come back in. Koga's pointing out some sort of problem with his shin. I guess the judge wants to have him continue anyway. Koga using a lot of side-to-side motion with his grip fighting. Only a minute and 10 seconds left. Still no official score. If I had to give it to anyone at this point, I'd go with Koga. He's been a little bit more dominant.
And certainly more aggressive, too. So time is out. 50 seconds to go in the match that will decide one of the finalists in the gold medal round. Motohiro Koga of Japan has been the aggressor for most of this bout. So now you hear the Soviet crowd try to get their countryman Ali Khamkhoyev moving.
This is definitely a hometown gem.
Three seconds left. Judo players will readjust their gis.
That white sash that Koga wears differentiates him from Khamkhoyev in the referee and judge's eyes. When you're a referee out there, you're supposed to look basically at the sashes, not at the faces or at the people that are wearing them, so you can be as objective as possible. In the last 15 seconds, and you can see how both of these men are going after each other very quickly to try to get that little advantage.
Seven seconds left. And that'll do it with just 1 second left. It's in the hands of the judges.
And that's it. The crowd thought that Khamkhoyev had scored a minor advantage as called by the judge sitting right on top of it. This was not corroborated by the other people, though. No score. Split decision. Goes to Khamkhoyev.
And look at Motohiro Koga. I'll tell you what, Koga won that bout. No question about it. He controlled the action for some 4 minutes and change. Khamkhoyev just barely tried to do something. Well, Japan's Motohiro Koga did eventually win one of the bronze medals, as did Thomas Bushka of Hungary. And if it's any consolation to Koga, the man who beat him to get to the gold medal round has emerged as the gold medalist. Ali Khamkhoyev of the Soviet Union and Igor Glyvuk, also of the Soviet Union, takes the silver medal.
Been joined in the studio now by the Executive Vice President of Turner Broadcasting, Bob Wessler, who's General Manager of the Goodwill Games. And let me go right for the tough question to begin with.
That's all I ever
You've
get.
had a lot of those the last few weeks.
That's right, I certainly have.
A lot of criticism. Not a tremendous amount, but a significant amount of criticism in the American press about the TV coverage. put the games aside for a moment, the TV coverage. How do you respond to it?
Well, I'm delighted. You know, obviously with more time and with 4 years ahead before we go to Seattle, we will be able to go back and review and do the things that we didn't get done properly. But for basically working on this thing for 11 months and having put the entire thing together, including negotiating with the Soviets and all that, in just about 18 months. It was really February of 1985 when we really got going. And then all of the things that we've put together, we've done since August or September of last year. I couldn't be happier.
How about the ratings? The ratings were the first thing that hit the press. Ratings poor.
Ratings were disappointed, but I think it didn't have the Goodwill Games didn't have a history or a tradition. We just couldn't get the word out enough. I think that we're, now that we've done it once, I think that it's going to be a lot easier to do it again in the future.
Are you disappointed in anything? Include the games in this. Is there anything you're disappointed in?
Sure, there are disappointments. There are lots of things that I could have done better, or that as a group we could have done better. But I'm a person that believes in, is the cup half full or half empty? I believe that the cup is half full. And you've known me long enough that I'm the eternal optimist, and that's part of what's gotten me through and what's gotten the group through.
We're one day away from finishing the inaugural games. The first conversation with yourself and Ted Turner, your first trip to Moscow, your first conversation that really were going to be a borning into the Goodwill Games. Just reflect on that for just a moment. Is it, what, a year ago or so?
No, it's 2 years ago. It was during the 1984 Olympics. I guess it was probably the first week in August of 1984. And Ted came into my office, which we have sort of adjoining offices in Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, you know, Wussler, he says, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I didn't even know what he was talking about. And he looks at the screen, he says, the Soviets aren't in Los Angeles, and we didn't go to Moscow 4 years ago, and we got to fix this. So I went home that night, and I happen to be a big fan of volleyball. We've all become, I think, pretty good fans of volleyball here.
It's been good in the ratings.
That's right, it has been very good.
People like it.
And that night I watched the Americans play the Japanese or something, and I said, you know, God, that darn Turner, he's right again. I wish the Soviets were there. They're the best in the world, and we should be playing them. And I came in to see him the next day, and I said, you know, you were right about the Soviets. I said, I really hadn't focused on it, but I said, last night during the volleyball I did. And he says, of course I'm right. I'm always right. You know that. He says, I want you to go to Moscow, and I want you to try and put something together, and let's buy the Olympics. Where are those next games? I said, Seoul, Korea. And he said, well, let's buy with the Soviets the rights to '88, and then we'll, that way we can't boycott it, and the Soviets can't boycott it. So I came over here with Don Ellis, our executive producer of the Goodwill Games. We came over right after the end of the 1984 Olympics, and we talked to the Soviets about would they be interested in sharing the Olympics with us? And they said, no, that was too political and all those things. But they said, you know, Mr. Wussler, the idea of doing something with you, with your company, and something that would honor the 1976 Montreal Olympics, the last time everybody got together, that's a good idea. And that was really the genesis of the Goodwill Games.
When you go back and look at things that have happened here, what's one of the unusual things? We just saw some coverage of it on primetime tonight, Moto Ball as an example. Are there any new ideas that have come out of this?
Well, we are going to try to put together a little Moto Ball league in the States. We're going to try and start off with 8 cities.
You really are?
Absolutely. We think it's something that needs to be experimented with. And we're talking about putting together 8 cities, maybe Charlotte and Jacksonville and Atlanta and maybe New Orleans and some places like that.
Oh, my.
And we'll come up with 8 teams, and we'll try to televise some of them. We think that it's a sport that at least needs to be tested. We'll do some testing on it and see where we go from there.
Let's see. You could call it the NAML.
With Skip,
the NAML.
With Skip Carey as the commissioner.
Skip Carey would probably want to buy a franchise. The NAML, the North American Motorball League. How would that? Or NAMA. We'll work on that.
He's looking forward to getting back with the Braves and getting back on his regular schedule.
You know what, though? I think he'll never admit it to us, but I think Skip Carey liked coming here and covering the boxing and the moto ball.
I think Skip did, and I think most of our people, you know, from Paul Horning, and I know Peggy, who you just had on a few moments ago, I think everybody's had a very interesting time here.
Some you couldn't miss.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll be right back in a moment. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to go to boxing, flyweight boxing, with American Arthur Johnson in action. We'll be right back.
These are flyweights, 112 pounds, and a good one from the U.S. Arthur Johnson out of East St. Louis, Illinois, is going for the gold against a Russian fighter, Rinvidas Biljus. Of Bulgaria is the referee, and Johnson may be the best hope for the U.S.
He really is. He's a great amateur fighter. He keeps his hands very busy. This is one guy Roosevelt Sanders does not have to say. You got to keep punching, as don't counter punch. Let's start leading with the punch. This kid's got great hands, very quick, from East St. Louis, Illinois, 20 years old, 5'7". Here we go.
A student at Southern Illinois University.
Fighting a Lithuanian.
Johnson, of course, in the blue trunks. The Soviet fighter. Biljus is in the red.
Biljus 5'7", beat a Mongolian and a Bulgarian easily on the way to the finals.
The referee wants to get Johnson's sash.
Of course, the clock is stopped now. 2:42 till everything's tied back together. We see that's Laszlo Papp, the first three-time gold medal winner of the Olympics. 48, 52, and 56.
Biljus off to a good start here against Johnson.
Watch the quick hands of Johnson, though. He has really got some good hands. Good combination fighting.
Biljus, though, with a good left jab and another. Johnson has yet to tag him. Seems a little tight here.
He usually starts out faster, folks.
Move in. Straight punches until you're inside. Straight until you're inside.
You hear some instructions by someone being shouted to Johnson.
Keep pressure. Step up on that jab. Step it up. Keep him straight.
Johnson now lands a jab. But misses with the right hand there.
Work the jab. Come on, come on. Let's work the jab.
That's right. Stay on it. Don't wait. Come on. Two of them.
Julia landed, but then Arthur Johnson returned the compliment. He missed that right.
Keep moving, Mark. Keep moving.
You're hearing some instructions by Roosevelt Sanders sitting over in the corner very clearly. I don't know if he's got a microphone or not.
Right. Come on.
Under and over, Art, when you go down. Under and over.
Straight left when he moves back after you right.
Come on, Art, come on.
A minute 8 remaining in the round.
Been
a pretty good round for Biljus. Now Johnson begins to roll. Arthur's going to work now. 40 seconds left, first round.
He may have been a little bit tight, of course. He's 20 years old. He's had the toughest road of, I think, any boxer to the finals. He's beaten 3 medalists all the way. 3 medalists from the World Championship.
After a slow start, he's beginning to come around, but Biljus is fighting a good fight, too, and he scored well to the body there. They're having at one another now, and Johnson is getting it going. He missed with the left hook there, but he scored well to the body.
He hasn't been as sharp as these first 3 fights. His combinations aren't as crisp, Skip. But maybe that Soviet has something to do with it.
One round is history. We will return. Arthur Johnson finished strongly in round 1, but I think Rinvidas Biljus won the round because of his good start.
But only 20-19. He's got to come back a little bit here in the second round. And he is the aggressor.
There's a good right hand.
Good right hand. Another good left hand.
He's got him hurt a little bit, and there's another good left. He wanted to throw another right, but couldn't get it loose. There's a good right by Biljus.
Another good right.
There's toe-to-toe. Good left by the U.S. fighter. Biljus missed with a wild right. They're having at it here, and the crowd enjoys the action.
In the semifinals, Arthur Johnson had to have a big third round to win, and he came up with it. He's the two-time national champ from East St. Louis, and he's having a pretty tough time here. Although he has come on here in the second round with some combinations.
But Biljus, a tough cookie, keeps fighting back. The judges are from North Korea, Great Britain, Soviet Union, Romania, and Denmark.
Busy hands. That's the theory. Roosevelt Sanders says you just can't win counterpunching in the amateur ranks. You must be busy with your hands.
It's not the velocity or the severity of the blow, it's the number, which may not be right, but that's the way it is.
With the white part of those gloves.
Good left hook by Arthur Johnson, but Biljus had landed a sharp right. Left hook staggered the Soviet fighter. Another straight left by Johnson. But Biljus comes back. Lands a right inside, a clubbing right hand. They exchange jabs. Johnson misses and misses. Less than a minute remaining, round 2, 50 seconds. Good flurry for Arthur Johnson there. The right landed high on the head.
Takes a lot of stamina, 4 fights in 8 days here to reach the finals. Oh, a good left by Johnson. Biljus scores 2.
He just keeps coming.
Sometimes they don't look as good and classy, but they throw so many punches, right, Skip?
Yeah, they really do.
They just keep throwing those hands.
A caution to Johnson with 20 seconds left. Good right by Biljus. Good left by Biljus. He misses with a right hand. So does Johnson.
Can they keep this up another round?
Whoever does is going to win it.
Get a little tired.
Round 2 is history at the boxing venue. And final round, Rinvidas Biljus of the USSR against Arthur Johnson of the USA, and who wins this round, we feel, will win the fight.
Yep. I gave it to the Soviet in the first round, and Arthur Johnson in the second. How about you?
Both 2019. So this round is it. Johnson lands a good left.
Let's see if he can do it again. Come up with that big third round of scoring.
Johnson missing consistently with his right hand. Biljus scores inside. Johnson with a left hook. Left jab. They exchange jabs.
5 Joe, a good right by Johnson. The 5 judges, Skip, are North Korea, Great Britain, Soviet Union, Romania, and Denmark.
2 minutes left in the bout. Johnson, of course, in the blue outfit.
You know you're not going to get all the best of the 3 Eastern Bloc country judges, right?
Be nice to win convincingly.
Here he comes.
Boy, Biljus lands some solid blows. He's a tough cookie. Biljus gives up, they say, about 3 inches to Johnson, but it doesn't appear evident here.
It sure doesn't. Some of the packed house, well, I shouldn't say packed, I don't know, but it's close. It's the biggest crowd we've had. It's over 16, 17,000 people here.
Right uppercut by Johnson appeared to hurt Biljus. So did a good left hand. Another right uppercut.
Now stay after him.
Oh, right, a right on the button. Biljus is hurt.
Almost got a standing 8 count there.
He digs the left to the body. Biljus fights back, but that was a good volley of blows for the American fighter. Less than a minute remaining. You got to finish strong, Arthur.
Referee's from Bulgaria. He could stagger him with, that's a good left. And a good right. Got him over the corner.
Wailing away now. 40 seconds left.
Pretty good fight. A lot of punches in 9 minutes. Last 30 seconds, Skip. I tell you, it's a tough call. Both of them a little tired, looks like.
Right hand by Biljus. 22 seconds. Johnson, another volley. Good left hand. Good right. Biljus battles back. It's a good one.
Both of them fighting on guts now. Both of them very tired. Trying to stay busy to press the judges.
12 seconds left. Biljus with a good right. Good right by Johnson. The left by Johnson. Another right. Biljus is out on his feet.
They're going to hear a nice applause here for this one. This has been a good amateur flyweight bout for the gold.
It's over, and back with a decision.
So Arthur Johnson and Rinvidas Biljus with an excellent bout, and pretty close, as a matter of fact. Let's take a look at the decision.
В этом бою победил Артур Джонсон.
Arthur Johnson, a 3-2 decision to win the gold in the lightweights. I think his joy and exuberance speaks for itself. In order, Arthur Johnson defeated Hungary's Janos Varadi, Brazil's Hamilton Rodriguez, Venezuela's David Grieman, and a very good boxer in Rinvidas Biljus of the Soviet Union, Arthur Johnson of the United States, winning the gold medal. And that young man is very proud to be representing his country in a past few days when the United States hasn't won many gold medals. I'm sure a lot of American sports fans will be happy to see that. So Arthur Johnson, the winner. Peggy Fleming's with us. And Peggy, I had been talking to you about your getting around town a little bit, getting out to restaurants and having a little bit of a good time. Had any special things happen?
Well, we've had a lot of fun. We've had Japanese food, and we had Georgian food, and we went to a restaurant with Kurt Gowdy. I have to tell you this story. It was a wonderful restaurant, lots of food, lots of drink. And we were in a room with some Italians, a group of like 15 people, and we were a group of about 10. And the Italians started singing songs in Italian. And we're going, you know, God, how rude, and, you know, it's so noisy in here. And then we kind of got into it. We thought, God, isn't that friendly and wonderful? And then they kicked it over to us, and they wanted to hear some American songs, and we all looked at each other. Do we really know any words to any songs?
I have a feeling Kurt did.
And Kurt came up with Home, Home on the Range. And we had a wonderful time, and it was really fun.
Home, Home on the Range.
Of all the songs that we all could know the words to. Oh, yeah, I thought we were terrific.
Peggy, it's been great having you with us.
Thank you.
The coverage on the figure skating was wonderful. And I'll see you tomorrow. You and I will be together along with Kurt at the closing ceremony.
Right.
Great. I want to just take time before we go to show you one more of the pieces by Richard Blystone. Richard Blystone has been taking a look at Moscow through the eyes of somebody who hadn't been here before. Television is not a 24-hour phenomenon here in Moscow as it is in the United States, but you can learn a lot about the Soviet Union from their TV programming, as Richard Blystone found out when he tuned in recently.
So there you are back there looking at the Soviet Union. The magic of television takes you into a different world. Now let the magic of Soviet television take you into a really different world. It's morning exercise time. If you survive half an hour of this, 8 hours of work should be a cinch. But if you've collapsed, stay tuned to the Morning Mail program. Morning Mail not only airs viewers' views, it tries to make up for what people complain they're missing. Seriously, viewers write 6 million letters a year to Soviet TV authorities, and they're taken seriously.
I would say that audience today is influencing very much our programs.
Just try satisfying everybody in 45 languages across 11 time zones. But there's one guy they've got to satisfy.
We are not pretending that we are independent. We are trying to help party and government to reach the goals which are in our society.
There's plenty of culture on Soviet TV. Poetry is even an audience grabber.
I say, what do you need?
So are foreign language lessons.
I don't know what I need. I think I need a cup of hot coffee.
Let's go, girls. On the surface, your everyday game show, a Siberian bus driver tries not to spill water while seamstresses try to thread needles and economists do math puzzles with the ticket numbers. But there's method in this madness, too.
According to our investigation, about 70% of young people are choosing their first profession in their life under influence of television and radio. We had tried with this program to raise the status of some professions.
The average Soviet viewer watches 2.5 hours a day, and he needs the time because, like some other things here, TV helps develop endurance. Too bad we haven't got time to show you all of Agriculture Hour, but we didn't want you to miss the news.
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
The second lead item in this particular cast is 3.5 minutes on the economy of Kazakhstan, followed by news from the Kharkov turbine plant, making up perhaps for what they didn't see about Chernobyl. Soviet TV has its lacks, no sex, no gore, no sleaze, but that doesn't mean no fun. For the Goodwill Games, I'm Richard Blystone.
Well, this will be the last of our late night reports from Moscow. We, of course, have daytime and primetime coverage tomorrow, along with a closing ceremony. But this will be the last of the late night reports. I want to thank all the guests, including Peggy Fleming, who's here tonight, but all the folks who've stopped by, like Kurt Gowdy and Paul Horning and Skip Carey, etc. But you are by far my favorite guest. I'll say that clearly. Thanks for coming in again tonight.
Thank you.
I want to remind you that tomorrow night in prime time, we are going to offer coverage of the U.S.-USSR confrontation in the Men's World Basketball Championships from Madrid, Spain. It is a game that everybody has been looking forward to. Tonight, the Soviet men upset the United States in men's volleyball. Tomorrow night, the U.S. will have an opportunity to seek some measure of revenge. We'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us on Late Night from Moscow. This is Bob Neal saying, "Das Vidanya."